welcome back to another episode of The 116. How you doing? I'm Greg Fish. Good to have you with us here. The 116 is a podcast about living life higher, wider, closer, and deeper. And the 116 is a presentation of First United Methodist Church in downtown Peoria. We invite you to like us and share us on social media. That helps other people get out, helps us get the word out to other folks as well. And we're available on all podcast platforms. Be sure to subscribe, and you can get all the updates. Also, if you're on YouTube, I can't remember if it's subscribe or follow one of those. It's free. Just follow along, and we are available both in video and audio, so you can get us either places or on Siri or, what's the other one? Alexa, just ask for us. If you have it, you know what it is. Well, I get so excited when I come into the studio every single time because there are so many wonderful things happening in the life of our ministry here that we like to share with the world. And it just seems like whenever you get a chance to meet somebody new, and even though I've known today's guests, the Lewises, for a little while off and on, getting to sit down and talk with them and getting to know them has just been such a thrill to me, because it's really interesting how when you start to learn people's story, you find out these remarkable things about them, and you realize you have such remarkable people living among you, and you may not even know what is going on behind the scenes of ministry. And so today our guest is Dwayne and Diane Lewis, and they are with us here in the studio to talk with us about a very special, I know it's not a ministry per se, but yet it is. I think everything as Christians we do as a ministry, really. But it's a unique thing that they discovered that both elevates the special needs community, but gives something really important to the community at large that we all need. It helps people find their place in this world and to find productive, valuable things to do that truly makes a difference in our society. So with that, guys, welcome along. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning.
Dwayne and Diane, tell me just, first of all, tell the folks a little bit about yourselves, where you come from.
Okay, well, actually, we're originally from Chicago, Illinois, and we grew up there as natives.
Right.
Went to school there, everything, and actually then I went off to college, Cornell University.
Nice.
Studied architecture there.
Uh-huh.
And then went on to do a couple of masters. And one was in human service administration, and the other one was in theology at McCormick Theological Seminary in Hyde Park of Chicago, Illinois.
So it doesn't take me long to figure out probably I'm definitely not the smartest guy in the room today. No question about that. Not that I ever am. But wow, that is really impressive. Now, once you got this great education and you set off into the world, what did you do with your life at first?
Well, at first I went into the professional career, of course, and I worked for Skidmore, Owens & Merrill, which is one of the larger architectural companies worldwide. Worked on projects all over, large scale projects in Europe. Nice. And things like that.
Oh, wow.
Mm-hmm.
And got to see quite a bit of the world myself.
Nice.
So,
nice.
During the college days, and but it all worked out, and it was a great experience. And then actually, as I began to progress and go along and marry, and my wife, who I've known since a child, and we engaged. And then when we began to have family, someone asked me, would I be interested in working still as an architect, but more so in the capacity where I can manage my family. And they said, hey, we'd like to introduce you to the educational world.
Right.
Nice. Nice.
So from there, I began to actually start teaching, and I started teaching vocational education, and I taught at several of Chicago public facilities, and there I went from Washburn Trade School, Dunbar,
Nice.
CVS, Benito Juarez, and then Simeon, and I went on until eventually I retired. And then at retirement, I still had some teaching in me.
So you don't look old enough to retire. That can't be so. But well, go ahead.
Okay.
Well, you got to remember, was teaching in full time, and I was doing the double masters in between.
Nice.
So it was kind of years was being spent richly. However, after I finished, at that point, I had my daughter while in school. I had 3 kids by then.
Right.
We had me and my wife, Diane, and she one day came home and she had a science project that she was working on, and she began to show it to me, and she said that, hey, Dad, I got this idea about this little invention that we're doing, and I made it, and she put it together, to make a long story short, and it was really just answering one of the problems that the science teacher had asked her to solve. And when she solved it, she asked me to help her craft it. So we sort of put our heads together and as a family, and we started crafting it and put it together. Nice. And at that point, Diane, you could tell more about the eraser myth. Why don't you go ahead?
Well, like you said, it solved some of the problems that teachers have. They're always looking for their erasers, and markers. So she came up with an idea of what's called the eraser myth. Okay. Which solves both problems. And because it has a pouch to hold the markers, and it's magnetic where it sticks to the board. So she's like, nice. Hey, Dad, this will be really great, for teachers to utilize in school. And so from there, the teacher said, make sure you follow up and get it patented. And that's what we did. So while in the 5th grade, we helped her go through the process of getting it manufactured and also having it patented, which nothing like that had ever happened in our family. Someone having a patent, and especially at that age. So we were so excited about that.
Now, I want to go a little bit further on this in just a moment, but and Diane, I want to ask you about your life trajectory as well. But before I do, I've got to ask you, because seeing that you're an architect, this is the first question I had. And, of course, most of us, our experience with architects only goes as far as the Brady Bunch.
Oh, wow.
Mike Brady. But seriously, what is the coolest project, Dwayne, the absolute coolest project that you've ever been a part of as an architect?
Canary Wharf.
Okay, where's that?
In London.
In London.
Actually, it's in London, and it's nicknamed the Isles of Dogs. But it's very interesting because that was really one of my first launch projects coming out of college. And I walked in on a $3 billion project.
Oh, wow.
So I was pretty excited about that. And the fact of it, it had some unique history because our project manager, he actually had negotiated with London to buy land from them, which the project was half the size of London. And he actually negotiated $1 per mile. From there, he took on the project, and we ended up building a facility that had, several high rises, a train station in, all kinds of residential facilities off from the waterfront. And the thing that was most exciting to me was the fact that I was communicating internationally, and we were, doing that for the first time, and we would run into serious problems like how do we communicate with one another in a distance and explain intricate ideas that dealt with engineering and things like that.
Wow. So did you spend a considerable time in London then during this project?
Well, that was interesting that you mentioned that, because I didn't. What I ended up doing was helping the company from avoiding those expenses by actually building models for them.
Right.
Gotcha.
And life-scale models where each country could see the forms as we discussed it over the phone.
Diane, tell us just a little bit of your story.
Well, really, mine's kind of short. It's not as extensive as Dwayne's because I come from a family of entrepreneurs. So my dad,
Nice.
growing up, I watched him, own his own fish market. And my sisters and brothers, we got a chance to work right there with him. So when this idea of the Eraser Mitt came about, I was like, hey, Dwayne, we got to do this. We got to launch this. I believe I got some of the skills that could help us launch this product. So really, that's my background: administration and entrepreneurship.
And you have 3 kids?
3 kids.
Very nice. And one's a doctor?
One, yes, my oldest one.
Nice.
Yes. Oh, that's a story in itself on
Wow.
how we helped her get along and accomplish her goals. So we're excited about that.
Beautiful. Okay. Well, and of course, as parents, you can take credit for that. That's perfectly okay. The reason she is who she is today is because of you guys. And I'm sure that's largely true.
Yes.
I'll bet she would tell us the same thing. So now you've got this Eraser Mitt project going on.
Yes.
And is this where you actually begin to build your business that has turned into what you're doing today?
Actually, it was the start of the business.
Right.
Okay.
After I finished, we finished developing the project for the kid, and we put it to market. I came up with an idea where we were first shipping it overseas,
Right.
and we were doing a lot of that, and we ran into some problems because we had to make large capacities of shipment to meet the quota.
Gotcha.
And we saw that as a problem. So what we ended up doing was since I had already started teaching and understood how to teach students architecture and things like that and building projects that we had worked on, I said, hey, maybe the kids can actually make some of these projects.
Right.
And that way I cut the air cost and all these shipping fees and things like what the economy is dealing with now.
That's
Right.
true.
So because I was trying to meet the customer demand, and our clientele wasn't actually asking for that much of a quantity yet.
Right.
Whereas overseas we had to ship, in order to make a shipment.
Now, were you
fulfillment, we had to
actually
go quite a
manufacturing?
time. Yes, we were.
Okay.
We went from designing it, putting it together, and then we actually started manufacturing it.
So you went from architecture and then teaching to manufacturing, design, and marketing, basically.
That's true.
Yeah.
The marketing piece was new for me.
Right.
Yeah. How long ago was this? When did you start doing this?
This was around in 1990.
Okay. All right. So you've got this project going now. This has been going for a while. How long did it take before you began to identify this need when you began to work with special needs students and realize the capacity that they had for doing creative learning things themselves, as well as what you could pour into them and how it could affect the community in a positive way? How long did it take for this idea to begin to develop?
This idea was birthed around about recently, maybe like 5 to 6 years ago.
Right. It was only like recently that you started.
It was a hunch. We were working with kids and started, actually, like I mentioned before, having them train and build the project through their after-school matters programs and things like that. And then all of a sudden, one day, we were delivering an order to one of the schools in Chicago, and the principal just ran out chasing us and said, hey, can I get your attention? And I said, what's the problem? And so she says, my kids can do that. My kids can do that.
Yeah.
And I said, whoa, And so she says, just would you let them come out to your place where you're manufacturing and just take them out there. Just take one. So I went on and I said, okay, I haven't worked with special needs kids before, but I'll give it a shot and I'll let one come out. Well, we got ready to have one come out and we were prepared, and sometimes teachers can be a little pushy, so we ended up having 9 show up.
Nice.
So we showed them around the studio where we worked and how we processed and everything, and the kids start fudging around. So I said, hey, give it a shot, see what you do. See what you can do. And let's see what happens. And so they start fumbling. To be honest, I was just totally blown away.
That's true.
The kids got so focused, involved, and I saw a part of their brain that worked like I had never seen before.
Right.
I saw extreme attention, creativity, discipline, friendliness, just hunger to learn. And I was awed at that to the point where when they got ready to leave, I went back and I called the principal, and she says, "Okay, are you going to hire one? Are you going to hire one?" I said, "I want them all."
That's true.
So you find yourself then in this position of creating this product that has become a popular product, and you're doing well with the product, I'm assuming.
Very well.
And now this new idea is being birthed. And not only did you see it as a ministry work right away, did you see it as something that's going to make a difference in their lives? Or at first, was this just an idea of how to put people to work in general?
Well, when it came down to teaching, that has always been a ministry to me.
Okay.
Wow.
However, with my daughter inventing the product and then us eventually transitioning some of the kids to having them process and make it, which was a total manifestation to me, I began to look at the special need kids a different way because I saw more of a therapeutic base for them.
Gotcha.
And I saw them go from to wow, and I began to study that, and I say, how is that happening? And so my daughter, who my wife mentioned being a doctor, when she was in med school, I used to poke around into some of her books and things like that, and I would study the brain, and I would notice that it would say things like, well, match up things, for example, that, vocational education, which I had been doing all along, is a match for the students of special needs.
Right.
And the repetitive learning thing. And that kind of surprised me. So I started studying it, and I started recognizing how you could ignite different cells and get them recharged and things like that. And I began to practice it with the kids. And
nice.
I noticed kids who had Down syndrome went up. I noticed kids who had all kinds of autism levels on the spectrum began to focus. But what was the most amazing thing for me was seeing the parent respond.
Right.
I would see a parent who just did their everyday expressions come in lit up.
Right.
Pushing the kid to school, being there, picking them up on time, total cooperation with us.
True.
And I said, God, now this is a perfect triangle. Teacher, student, parent, it was working. Back in the day, we had people like Jacqueline Vaughn, who was an old, time administrator, I'll say.
Teachers
who kind of really, I'll say, favored that idea. And of course the mayor did too. But it was that triangle hit. I had heard about it years ago, and I saw it coming to life.
Now this is interesting because the way this is evolving now, you're making a difference in the students' lives. You're starting to bring something out of them.
Right.
You're making a difference in the parents' lives. Diane, what difference did it make in your life?
Oh, my gosh. Of course, I'm not a teacher. I never taught, of course. But just working along with my husband, gosh, it just enlightened me. Just working with these kids, these gifted kids. I mean, I had to tell Dwayne, gosh, they're gifted. How come, there's not cameras more on them? Because they're so gifted, so focused. I'm like, gosh, I want to work with them every day. Wow. And as I began to sit down with them, teaching them the different skills within the lab that we had set up, gosh, it was amazing. I really, almost every day I had tears in my eyes because I'm like, as I would talk to the kids, we had this thing called, once they cross the threshold of the classroom, we had this saying, you can't say, I can't. You had to say, I can. And so each time I sat with each one of the kids, I'm like, okay, now let's recite. You can do it. You can do it. And the kids like, I can do it. I can do it. So, of course, let's just say, for example, sitting at the sewing machine, I'm like, okay, now we're going to learn how to thread this machine. Okay, Miss Lewis, we're going to learn. I said, okay, now you can do it, right? I can do it. And I'm telling you, the kids were so focused. They learned how to thread the machines, learn how to sew just like I could. It was really, I'm just speechless. Really, we need to spend more time with them.
And it's interesting then, because these beautiful young people who we would classify in the area of developmental disabilities and that sort of thing, they actually exhibited something that you don't often see in society in general. We can be a people who can give up almost too easily, and yet they're teaching you guys something here?
That's true. That is so true. I'm telling you, they would come in, first of all, like Dwayne mentioned, they were so excited each day. They would see us also in the hall. Mr. Lewis, am I coming to Eraser Mitt today? And really, that's really all they wanted to do. We had to tell them, okay, now you still have to get your other work done. But they were so excited. But as they came into the room, they would always say, I can do it. And they were so excited to talk to us. We had heard from other teachers saying how silent they were. They were, didn't talk much. But when they came to Eraser, knew they were coming to Eraser Mitt, the eyes lit up. It was amazing. I'm like,
love it.
Really, it's really, I'm just speechless. Wow. I'm just so excited to have to talk about this project.
So now this project is moving along, and you shared with me, you began to realize something else, and that is that this is not just a model for the business that you guys have.
Right.
But you start to realize that you guys are creating a model that's important for society, because we ship so many of our manufacturing jobs overseas when in fact we have capable people here who we can enliven and enlarge through projects like this and keep manufacturing here at home. How did that discovery come about, and what have you learned about that?
I'm glad you mentioned that, Greg, because to be honest, it was, I believe, a couple of people that kind of sparked that thought in me. Our former mayor, he had initiated an idea to bring manufacturing. He said, if we could just bring it back to the States.
Okay. And
I listened to him, and then I said, wow, I'm in the midst of doing that right now. And it's saved me a ton of money economically, and I can control my product production. So I said, well, I'm working in line with what the government is viewing, in a sense, and what he's, initiating. So I went full thrust with it. But what I saw was that where it really, really helped was in a crisis like right now. Everything's locked up. Right. Ships, hold control. Here comes Christmas.
Right.
Where are the kids going to get their toys? Okay. If we had the manufacturing here, it wouldn't be a problem.
Right.
So what I did in advance, we had all of our manufacturing done right in the classroom.
Right.
Therefore, when we ship out, we had full control, and we knew how to monitor it without any disturbance. So, in essence, what that boiled down to, we ended up doing products in 43 states,
right,
including Canada.
Wow.
And we did it all with the kids, right from the classroom.
Nice.
We designed the product so it was environmental friendly, so that we wouldn't have to work with any health issues, taking it all the way through all of the health laws, etc. And what ended up happening, where we really saved a lot of money and finances, was on shipment.
Right.
We didn't have to deal with air freight, which was huge, and that began to cut our cost margins, and we were able to go from there with very little cash flow.
Now I'm going to ask you a question, and this is going to be, this is a kind of a harsh question, but I know that some of our listeners are going to be asking this. And I know the answer because we've talked about this already. Talk to me about the quality of the product that you've been able to put out.
Oh, yeah. Now, I'll just be up front. As sometime my teacher hat comes on. And I had told the kids when they came, I was kind of hesitant about whether or not they could really perform.
Sure.
And we set a bar, me and my wife.
That's true.
And we said, okay. I took the product that I had from overseas created, and I showed them the product. And I said, if you guys can match this product or do better, we will keep this program going. And you have a job. And so the kids, being as kids, energetic, motivated, they produced so many products at the beginning. And I looked at them, and I have to admit, they produced products better than the manufacturers had done.
They did. Wow. They really did.
Wow.
So from there, I opened shop, you know, and we went with it, and my wife and I, we started buying equipment, and we built it, and we started going from one group, and we started adding groups, and we started, you know, exploring other schools, and next thing you know, I knew we were down at the district, and the school system asked us would we spread it all over the city.
So where are you today then? Tell me about, have you diversified your product any? Are you still doing a race? Are you still producing? Where are you guys today?
Well, I'm glad you mentioned that because I have to admit, we took a break, and it was kind of convenient because of what all has been going on. But during that time span, I came to Peoria, and through my daughter's motivation, being a doctor, which she said to me one day, "Hey, Dad, I strike a deal with you." And I say, "What's that?" And she says, "Why don't you become, since you're a minister, why don't you become a chaplain? And if you become a chaplain, we could work together."
Nice. I like it. I like it.
So I took the bait, I'll say, and I went on to register for CPE training. Went through training to be a chaplain. And from there, which enlightened me a whole lot about myself, I had told them from the beginning, I said I would drop all of my responsibilities in the business and let my wife continue while I trained. But once I finished, I would reassume. Gotcha. So now we're back putting it all together, and we were trying to decide where, and then we said, hey, Peoria is a nice, comfortable place. We've been here for a little while.
Right.
We like the people, we like the area, and we like to launch the project.
But also, I want to interject, too, that COVID, as you know, hit last year.
Right.
And so we're dealing with that for the past several months. You know, that put everything on hold. So, of course, when we came to Peoria, I guess it was great timing for us, you know, as far as the transition from Chicago to Peoria. So, of course, Dwayne went to his program, but also we began to kind of think, okay, now what changes can we make, you know, due to, you know, COVID, just like any other company, you know, a lot of things going online. So I just want to interject to say, yeah, COVID hit, so that put us back to thinking, back to the drawing board to say, okay, now how can we, you know, redesign this program to make it work in spite of what's going on?
Okay, so, and this is interesting now. So you're a Cornell trained, basically, I'm going to just give you credit, world-class architect. I mean, since you've worked in line, we'll call you world-class. But really, you've had some great experiences in life. Yeah. And how rewarding is this then to be working with this part of our culture, our society that is, can I say, perhaps one of the more vulnerable corners of our society? How has that been rewarding to you as a man who has had so many experiences in this life?
Well, let me say this. Let me back up for a minute, Greg, and just say this, because the question you asked earlier, I want to kind of make emphasis toward that. One thing we did when we created the Eraser Mitt, and we saw how it worked, me being an architect, I created it as a prototype.
Gotcha.
An actual prototype, so that if the kids actually learned how to make this product, this one product, start to completion, that they can design and manufacture anything.
That's true.
So we began to go from eraser mitt to T-shirts.
Gotcha.
Began to go from T-shirts to shoes. We began to go from shoes to bags, and we began to just take the kids through this experience with ease, because they had figured out how to do this eraser mitt, which had a hidden amount of elements in it, of lessons that we had embedded through the project.
And here's the turn this is all taken, that you guys are now in process of writing a book about your experience. And what have you learned about working with special needs students that maybe you didn't know before, that maybe many of our listeners don't understand? Because we might think, well, we just have to love them and nurse them along, but we're not sure they can be a productive member of society. What have you learned in that regards?
I learned overall, and it's quoted in Psalms 127, I believe, 3rd verse. But anyway, in a nutshell, it's saying that children are your reward. I learned that children, and I key on this, are a blessing.
That's true.
Sure.
I had no thought when I invested in my own kids. The first one in particular, that she would become a doctor. Had no vision of that, nor the other kids, how they developed. What I learned with the special need kids that really, I'd say, really, I kind of really focused on, was that all children are blessings.
That's true.
When I worked with these kids, I, for example, saw kids who were, like you said, followed along mom's apron string. Was a kind of a burden in a sense. Going through our program began to be night and day for the parent. Began to be a help to the house, began to be a contributor, and actually working with us and making finances in the summers and things like that. That began to be a help in mom's, So I saw that, but then I saw it grow. I saw some of our kids begin to, believe it or not, humbly jump and sit for the SAT.
That's true.
Wow.
I saw some of them go off to junior college.
Nice.
I saw couple of them who were artistic, get full scholarship opportunities to, like, the Art Institute of Chicago.
That's true.
I saw these kids growing, and with the parents seeing them growing, and what I seen accomplished was a parent and family belief system elevating. That parent began to believe in that child, and that child began to be not a burden, but a producer.
Yes.
So what would, for a parent who might be listening, who has a special needs child, and they're kind of at that crossroads in their life, and they've heard you talk about what you've been able to bring out of these students, and they parents see this in their children.
That's true.
They might be a little discouraged because of some things they're having to deal with, but they can see in their child this potential that isn't coming out. Do you have any advice for them that you've learned in this journey of yours?
I have one major thing that I tell all parents and whoever I meet, and I challenge them. I say, give us 3 weeks with your kid. Just 3 weeks. And I guarantee you'll see a world of a difference.
And also, I want to interject too, Dwayne. You might want to mention how Dwayne said in many of the parent-teacher conferences, the IEPs. You might want to touch on that, because the narratives that we have for the kids that we design narratives.
Okay.
So the parents would get more insight on the productivity of their child. So Dwayne might want to
example,
mention that.
what she's stating, one thing that I felt like a deal breaker for the parents working with special needs kids, and this is what I discovered. the school system works with the regular kids, and they have great amount of ideas on how to get them college ready, as we call it. But with the special needs kids, it doesn't exist. So I would say, how could they ever get to those levels if they didn't have these platforms? So what I did was I sectioned out it originally from 9th through 12th grade. And I set up a curriculum just for them.
Right.
But in the midst of it, like my wife's saying, at the end, rather than giving them letter grades, the A's, the B's, the C's, the D's, and have them sit in a conference with their counselor and go over that, we birthed a narrative system,
Right.
which is commonly used in private schools.
Gotcha.
And we basically would show them the growth levels of their child.
Right.
Because many of them, most of them came in with a 4th grade level education. We would show them the growth levels to the parent. And we'd also point out exactly in the narrative what their gifts were.
Right.
Oh, wow. Wow.
And then we bring copies to the meeting with the counselor, with the parent, and we'd personally hand the parent their copy.
That's true.
So that they could walk home with it, study it, and begin to nurture their child on where their strengths were.
Right.
Wow. Well, this has been just a fascinating conversation, and I can tell by the time that this has been really intriguing because it's gone by so quickly. I want to give you just a quick opportunity to talk about this book that you're working on and what your expectations are when you think it might be available. And also, are you available to talk with groups on this topic? So if you could talk to me on those things.
Sure, by all means. And as far as the book, Diane, why don't you tell them a little bit about the book?
Well, of course, Dwayne had designed a 14-step curriculum, and I kept telling him, I'm like, Dwayne, you need to put this book, you need to create a book. So that's what we've been doing, over the past few months, putting a book together. We're thinking it may take a couple of more months, to finalize. But, of course, as far as contacting Dwayne, we have, I would suggest by email at this point. Just to gather interest, to see if there's interest from parents who would like to have their child included in a program as such, because we do, I guess, starting the first of the next year, we do want to get it back going again. And so if that's the case, then, of course, they can always email us. Did you want me to state the email address?
Sure, if you want to, and then we can put it on the screen and in the show notes as well. So go ahead.
Well, it's actually DLewis, LEWIS, at erasermit.com.
Okay.
So that would be the email address. Any other questions? I'm sorry.
Oh, no, yeah. I just want, so you guys would be available to talk with anybody if they have questions for you. They can contact you by this email address.
Yes, by email preferably at this point.
Gotcha. Wonderful. Well, and my notes were just rich with things, and the time has gone by, but is there anything else that you think, I want to make sure the folks know this before we go?
We just basically want to give a shout out to all of the special need kids out there.
Nice.
We recognize that people may not know, but it's 2.5 billion of them out there. And the fact that they are, we just like to let them know that we have a heart for them and that we just want to reach them at this time and let them know, most of all, that we love you and God loves you most.
Wonderful. Yeah. Oh, okay. So I'm going to try to keep myself from getting too emotional here, because that's just beautiful. I got to tell you, what a great thing. Thank you so very much for being with us today, and may God bless you in the journey, and keep us posted. And any way we can also help you along in this journey, getting the word out about your book. I want to be sure and do this because this is just a beautiful ministry you guys are doing. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you for having us.
Certainly.
We really appreciate it.
Yeah. Well, hey, hasn't this just been a great episode of the 116? You can help other people know about this program by sharing it, liking it on social media, and be sure and follow it on your social media or on your podcast platform, as well as on YouTube. Like, subscribe, follow, whichever the vernacular is on your platform. And sharing this word on social media is just a great way of helping us get the word out to other people, especially on an important message like today that goes far beyond First United Methodist Church in downtown Peoria, which is where the 116 comes from. We are a podcast about living life higher, wider, closer, and deeper. And we want to thank you so much for coming along today. Go to peoria1.com for more information about us, about Peoria First United Methodist Church. And there's also some contact forms there. You can send us email if you have more questions as well. It's peoria1.com. My name is Greg Fish. Thank you so very much for coming along. It's been a pleasure having you all with us today.